it's not going to win you the entire Democratic primary. But she does have a big base of support. But the question is it big enough where she can win in any state? Has she put in the proper ground game? Has she done the organization? Does she have the financial support to come in and do that? Because she doesn't have quite the same financial clout as Bernie when it comes to raising a small donation. She doesn't do as much PAC stuff as like a Pete Buttigieg or Joe Biden. So it's pretty tough for her to come out and do that. It's just we don't know if she's been able to do it as well to put the ground game going and really make it work. But it does look like she's doing well in the short term, however, as the day after the Iowa caucus is where she finished in third place. Senator Elizabeth Warren's campaign announced a $2 million fundraising goal it hoped to hit in the 7 days ahead of the New Hampshire primary. On Sunday, her campaign told supporters that it blew right past that target and was doubling the goal to $4 million. Unlike some of our opponents who can count on wealthy donors and outside PACs to boost their get-out-the-vote efforts, we only rely on grassroots supporters like you to get it done. Her campaign said, echoing a line that Ms. Warren used in the Friday debate. Multiple campaigns have used pronouncements of fundraising windfalls to try and show momentum in recent days. Money is a necessity to stay competitive, especially in the political playing field. Will expand dramatically in the coming weeks as candidates must compete in these delegate-rich Super Tuesday states that vote in March. Pete Buttigieg, the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, announced on Saturday that he raised $4 million after the Iowa caucuses. And Friday's debate, Amy Klobuchar said that less than a day after Friday's debate, she raised $2 million. Senator Bernie Sanders also became the first candidate to disclose his full January haul, an eye-popping $25 million. Let's go. Not me, us, baby. Former VP Joe Biden notably has not disclosed anything since his fourth place finish in Iowa. His campaign said Friday's debate day had led to more online fundraising than any past debate day, but it provided no actual amount. So Boot Edge has been going off on Sanders, but not really to entirely positive results. He's speaking here at this dinner that we talk about. This is the dinner. It's called the Shaheen something dinner because it's named after the senators. So here he is speaking at the dinner that we want to hopefully try and play for you, and really getting booed from a large majority of people in the room after he tries to come after Sanders' Medicare For All plan. So yeah, here is the clip.
With a president this divisive, we cannot risk dividing Americans' future further, saying that you must either be for a revolution or you must be for the status quo. Let's make room for everybody in this movement.
I don't know if you can hear that, but it is a sweet sound of a lot of people booing. It is. So, yeah, that's Pete Buttigieg there. And he is trying to go after Medicare for All, which, I mean, good luck, man. By all means, good luck. I wish you the best. Yeah, so Buttigieg on Sunday, he offered a pointed critique of Bernie Sanders over health care, reminding voters it remained unclear how Sanders would pay for Medicare for All. It raises the question of whether the American people deserve somebody who can actually deliver math that adds up. Buttigieg, by the way, reaching new heights in his ability to talk for hours and say nothing of substance or consequence. Joe Biden offered similar criticism of Sanders on the question of, for the billionth time, how are you going to pay for it? Obviously, that's been answered many, many times. Sanders has released a list of financing options that could help pay for his proposal, but he has not detailed precisely how he would finance it because it's not actually a thing yet. Like, the people still has got to get elected, but yeah, I have no doubt that he the financing options I think would be really more than enough. And the fact is, it's going to save the American people money. Like, the system that we are on now would cost Americans more money overall in this system. That's the truth of the matter that really nobody except for the Bernie people talk about. Yeah, so Joe Biden offered similar criticisms of Sanders over the unanswered question of how exactly he's going to pay for it. Sanders, he released a list of financing options. And the last question for Buttigieg at the rally offered 3 options for a critical decision that could lie ahead. He says, Amy, Elizabeth, or Kamala as your vice president. Oh, that's quite a roster there. He says, you just named 3 people that I really respect, Buttigieg said in response to the question. I don't know if they all respect you. I don't know if he's going with Amy. I really don't know if he's after that debate. I really do not know, and especially in some of the debates past, I really don't know if he's going with Amy. So, Warren and Klobuchar presumably uninterested in being Buttigieg's running mates, as they're both in the primary race, as Harris dropped out in December. And actually, sometimes the more you compete with somebody, the more you come to respect them. Buttigieg continues. Obviously, we have different approaches and different views, but I think anyone would deserve to be considered by any nominee. And he says a lot of other people would be considered too. They don't have to all be household names like candidates that have run before. I don't know if Amy Klobuchar is a household name. I'm sorry, Pete, but again, could work. That's for sure. I really don't think it matters because I don't think Pete's going to need to pick a vice president. I think he'll be picking. I don't know which consulting firm he wants to work at soon when he drops out of the race, which I do think he will do pretty soon. So Elizabeth Warren, though, don't count Elizabeth Warren out. She's got plenty of energy left, she says, as Senator Elizabeth Warren. She's long insisted that I don't do polls. Yeah, so third place Iowa finish in some discouraging surveys from the state. Neighbors have not changed that situation anyway. There are 55 more states and territories after this. She told reporters after a rally here, swatting away a question about whether New Hampshire might functionally amount to a final stand. Because the thing is, once you got that momentum from the first 2 states, you can really take off. And if you don't get that momentum, you sink like your campaign is tied to a cinder block. Because that's the thing that really matters in the end. So Elizabeth Warren, she's trying to fight for her political life at this time. And I don't know. I don't see how she could really gain a good foothold to get herself considered as a front runner again. Because I think, Elizabeth, folks, your time has passed. I'm sorry. Anyway, so apparently there's been a big crowd, though, for Buttigieg, with more than a few political tourists in the mix. An hour before Pete Buttigieg showed up at the Elm Street Middle School on Sunday, hundreds of people stood in the morning cold wrapped around the school, and it was really quite an immense turnout. 1,824 people showed up. Biggest of any candidate in New Hampshire, the cyclist is Chris Meagher, the national press secretary. Whenever I say that name, my body is broken, like, ugh, already. Because just been looking on Twitter, like seeing him and like his responses to things, it's just like, oh, just shut up. But anyway, this looks can be so much deceiving, especially on the Sunday before a primary in a New Hampshire city that sits near the Massachusetts border. A quick survey of attendees sitting patiently in the bleachers before Buttigieg's arrival revealed that a number of them were audiences from out of the state, many of them from the Democratic hub, Massachusetts, just south of Nashua. Because if you look at the map, you see Nashua in the news a lot. It is literally a pretty much border town between Massachusetts. But the thing is, people from Massachusetts don't vote in this all-important primary that Mr. Buttigieg does need to win. The spot survey illustrated one of the rules of New Hampshire politics. The closer the event is to the state's southern border, and the closer the day of the primary, especially, that means it will be a bigger crowd of political tourists. So that element of political tourists is definitely going to be something I think worth watching as this whole event does continue to play out. There's been some pretty interesting cheers from Mitt Romney 8 years and a month after Mitt Romney won a commanding victory in the New Hampshire Republican primary. Primary voters are cheering for him again, but this time at the Democratic state events. Sign of the apocalypse there, if I don't know what else. Cheering for Mr. Bain Capital. We got the 2 Bain Capital guys in this race, with Deval Patrick and Mitt Romney, or at least they're represented in this race. Mitt Romney, thank goodness, is not in this race. But Amy Klobuchar, of all people, no, not really, I shouldn't say of all people, it's not a surprise at all, but her rally was the one that where Mitt Romney's name drew cheers, a roar of approval from the crowd. Klobuchar invoked Romney as an example of statesmanship from crossing party lines to vote to convict President Trump in the impeachment trial that ended last week. Klobuchar took note of the irony, telling supporters, "It was clear all of our worlds are upside down when we have our crowd here at a Democratic rally cheering for a Republican nominee for president. Maybe that's not the best way that you want to go. Sorry." Klobuchar, she's been campaigning as a moderate, though. Capable of winning crossover support from independent voters and disaffected Republicans. Also had a broader point to make. To me, leadership right now is not whether you're willing to just stand in the corner throwing punches, giving a speech by yourself, Klobuchar said, seemingly drawing a contest with the leading candidate of New Hampshire, Senator Bernie Sanders. Courage is whether or not you're willing to stand next to someone you don't always agree with for the betterment of the country. And again, that is really the whole big battle here, I think, in this primary. It shows you, are you willing to stand with someone are you willing to swallow your values for compromises with the right and just get dragged further and further to the right, like the Democratic Party has in its losing ways ever since the first election of Barack Obama, and well before that, to be completely honest with you. So ever since that's happened, they've been dragged this way, dragged that way by the right wing of this country. And they're finally, we have one person who's willing to come in and say, okay, enough is enough. And we have these people. Thankfully, Amy Klobuchar probably doesn't look like she's going to be going too far. Knock on wood. But that is the really, I think, what we're fighting against here in this Democratic primary. Klobuchar is one of several candidates who have been appealing explicitly or by implication center-right independents and Republican voters who are permitted to vote in this open Democratic primary. Pete Buttigieg has been running commercials touting his determination to win Republican votes against Trump, but that ambition could apply just as easily to the primary on Tuesday. And Joe Biden has long put his perceived appeal to conservative voters at the center of his electability pitch. But probably not this voter. Joe Biden's disastrous fourth-place finish in the Iowa caucus occurred just a week ago, and on Sunday he's still facing scrutiny over his performance there. A student asked how he explained his loss and what it meant for his national prospects, and this is how that exchange went.
Hi, my name is Madison, and I'm an econ student at Mercer University, and oh, awesome. So I'm going to be a little bit mean for a second, okay? So, so you're arguably the candidate with the greatest advantage in this race. You've been the vice president. You weren't burdened down by the impeachment trials. So, in the participation. So how do you explain the performance in Iowa, and why should the voters believe that you can win the national election?
She's got a point here.
It's a good question. Number one, Iowa's a Democratic caucus. You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you. It was a...
Yeah, this was like what a weird. He's kind of like Trump, but also in his own different ways. He's got that kind of old man, rotting brain affect that he puts off. It's like, you ever been to Democratic caucus? Girl, let me tell you about a Democratic caucus. You haven't? Come on, Jack, you're lying. Like, it's like what? You attribute it to a John Wayne movie. There's some uncomfortable laughter there. He argued the woman. He later told the woman she asked an honest question and argued that the results in Iowa, a heavily white state, did not necessarily shed light about what could happen in bigger battleground states like Pennsylvania and Michigan. And again, Bernie Sanders now overtaking him in the minority support in some polls, not all polls, I guess, but depends on what polls you want to look at, has had a bigger coalition with Hispanic voters for a long time, Muslim voters for a long time, and catching him in African American support, and especially with the momentum coming completely out of sales, Iowa and New Hampshire aren't incredibly important for no reason. There's not so much emphasis placed on them for no reason. It's because they determine so much of the momentum in the race. They shape the race, and it's key to winnowing the field and seeing who's a contender and who's not, because that is that's how this works. That's how it's really important to see how seriously you're considered. Depending on how well you do in the race. And that's a very, very big deal there. Yeah, so he says, I congratulate Pete. I congratulate Bernie. They did a great job. They were really well organized, better organized than we were in Iowa. Biden went on to suggest the candidates should be judged by the outcomes in the first